Start it now. Okay. Hi, all. Thank you so much for logging in to our virtual Red in NYC virtual event. We are so happy to have all of you here, and thank you for your time. So before we start today, I just want to talk a little bit about Red in NYC and my experience with them. They are a networking platform that has in the past been used as an in-person networking event, and since COVID has really stepped up and become a place for people to virtually meet and hear different interesting seminars and webinars about how the pandemic has affected all of our lives. So today I have two amazing guests. We have Joe Eisner here and Diego Hodara. So I just want to give them a few minutes to talk about what they do and what brings them here today.
Want to start, Diego?
You were named first, so you should. Please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Joe Eisner. I'm the principal of Eisner Design. It's an architecture and interiors office based in Manhattan and East Hampton. We specialize primarily in high-end residential work and commercial work. I also am involved in the development field, so I have a side company where we're engaged in real estate development projects, specifically new condo ground-up projects in New York City.
Okay, thank you. Diego?
Yes, Diego Hodara. We are a Titanium Realty Group. It's a development company that we do mainly ground-up residential, multi-unit, some component of retail on the ground floor, and we are mainly focused on Jersey City. We have finished some projects. We are under construction some others. We are starting others, so we have close to 1,000 units within the specific area, the Journal Square area in Jersey City. I'm by trade. I have a degree in architecture from where I'm originally from, in Uruguay. So I'm a licensed architect, not in the U.S. but in Uruguay, where I'm coming from. So we are very hands-on into the design as well as construction while we do the whole development process.
Okay, thanks, Diego. We're actually doing some work in Jersey City too. So I'm Blima Ehrentreu, and today I'm the one doing the interview. I am the founder and CEO of the Designers Group, which is a residential and commercial interior design firm. So we have been doing a lot of different types of projects in all sectors, whether it's residential, office space, we're doing a lot of healthcare. So we're really getting a lot of experience in all of those sectors. And because of COVID, we have been affected in all of those sectors as well. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today is, how this pandemic has affected us, our businesses, and also the environments that we're a part of, which the main one that we're going to discuss today is the office space, but there's so many others that we want to touch upon as well. Now, before I continue, I just want to thank our sponsors who have made today's virtual event possible. So we have DNA Construction Advisors, CNA Seneca Construction, Champion Elevator, Skyline Scaffolding, City Bay Capital, Clean to Clean, Remax 100, Eco Safety, View, Property Shark, and Hydrotech Environmental. So thank you to all of you for making this possible. I would also like to thank, I'm going to switch the order this time, Diego and Joe, for giving their time and imparting their wisdom to all of us. So thank you. Okay.
Thank you for having us.
Of course. Okay, so let's kind of pivot to our first question that we're here to discuss, which is that, we're all involved in design in some aspect. I come as an interior designer Joe was an architect, and Diego, you are on the development side, which you get to make those decisions. So all of us together here from the design standpoint has seen how COVID has affected us. So when we talk about office space, how do you think that the design of offices, and there's so many facets to that question, when we talk about how it's affected us in terms of the actual design and how people are going to be designing their office culture moving forward. So let's start with the actual trends of offices. How have they been affected, and how do you see them moving forward? So Joe, would you like to start with this one?
Sure. So I would say one of the main trends that we have seen really since the advent of the dot-com era, the beginning of the 2000s, was the open office plan and the more democratization of the office environment. Workstations tended to start having lower panel dividers, separations. There was more of an emphasis on collaboration as this kind of team approach became more and more important with, developments from the dot-com period, and that kind of has affected all office environments. Even some of the more traditional and stuffy environments like law offices and accounting firms and other businesses like that have even gone in that direction of like lower office panels and less separation. So the question is, will that continue or not, or are we going to revert back to more separation due to the COVID pandemic? Are we going to, just physically going to need to start segregating ourselves a little more for the sake of, our health and safety? That's a big question. I mean, I think there is going, in the immediate near future, there is going to be a trend to start raising panels in workstations and really being very careful as to how you group different departments or even sub-departments in a firm so that they have more limited contact with maybe the larger firm in general. That will raise a lot of other issues about socialization in the firm, and it could affect morale. There's a whole bunch of questions that can come up and will have to be dealt with. But we are, seeing this not just in the commercial world, but right away, I have gotten myself a million emails about from plexiglass companies, requesting, are their services to protect different environments, whether, it's bank tellers to people working in any kind of situation, even receptionists in stores, to provide this other layer of protection and this barrier. And that's going to be a challenging thing to address from a design standpoint.
Yes, definitely. Diego, is there anything you'd like to add to what Joe said?
So, first of all, let's ask ourselves, is the office the way we know it is going to survive? Is it going to continue, right? I think so. And the main thing is, yes, for some industries, some people, which is different, it works the remote, working remotely, but at the end, office is not only a place where you work, it's also a place where you socialize. It's a place where in other countries, you can even find your future mate husband or wife, although regulations in other countries, such as in the US, it becomes in corporate America more difficult.
That still happens.
In Latin America, where I'm coming from, it makes sense that you might find your mate within the work because you spend a lot of the time, you get to know, and it's a natural thing. So by creating these laws, we are blocking a natural thing. We're also blocking the opportunity to socialize by not having offices. And we are social animals. We are going to continue socializing regardless COVID-19 or any virus to come in the future, because we live among viruses. So I think this is a question of time to be adjusted, to mitigate the risk, to flatten the curve, and eventually live with it. At some point, we will learn how to live with it. So office, on my end, it will continue being. Yes, in New York, I might suffer for quite some time, mainly due to the oversupply in certain areas, and the fact that maybe that it's an expensive city, and some companies may decide to work remotely to lower overheads. But if you are in the middle of Wyoming and you are in an office there, it may sense maybe to work within an office, first because it might not be that dense, second it's not that expensive, and you could afford it in your overheads and your expenses of your company. So each market might be affected differently in terms of the asset class of office, and depending on the time that we are going to be through, who knows, 1 year, 2 years. Now, in terms of the short term, I do agree with Joe on the way in terms of design might change and go back a little bit more to the old times law firm, accounting firm style partitions within the same office. It could also control this type of social distance that are needed today. Now, when this is going to happen, I really don't know. I know that some offices, more moms and pops, are coming back to work on office from this coming Monday. But I also know some corporate American offices that are not even thinking about until late September. So this could be a delay. So this is my first cent on this topic.
Right. And what you were just saying, then you have companies like Twitter and maybe Facebook, I'm not sure exactly, but who have said you can work from home indefinitely. So this really will be changing the landscape of office space and how we thought of it, which actually brings into play the home office. But back to actual offices, do you have any ideas how we can continue an office culture? And this is actually not necessarily from a design perspective or even a development perspective, but just some way that we can keep our staff and employees engaged when we're not working in a physical location together. So I know for me, like I said, we're an interior design firm, and most of what we do is based on collaborating and working together. So we do have some of our staff that are not in the office, but our designers, we actually really like when we're all together working. We can brainstorm, we can think of ideas together, we're there with the materials, able to touch and feel them, and all of a sudden we have to work remotely. And that's not the only issue. There's also the problem of actually going to job sites and things like that. So Diego, we'll start with you. How do you think that in this new environment, we can keep our office culture and yet be able to offer the services that we've been offering in the past?
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think we, on the development side, we've been very efficient. We were already very digitalized in in terms of the cloud-based, already having a team with communications through either Zoom or other virtual ways, and WhatsApp. We have groups. So that didn't affect much in terms of functionality. We're working well remotely. And then there are, in terms of I mean, it's also easy when we have, let's say, Zoom or handouts from Google. We can share plans, we can go over it, we can even have access and make changes on the plans or sketches. So it's very interactive, it's very easy. Technology is here to help us to mitigate COVID that way. In terms of construction, we haven't seen much issues. We are addressing the health issues the best way possible with having a sink and wash hands, construction crews coming in, being sensitive with those issues with the masks. Nothing have affected that, but you brought something interesting. Like when we are in the design phase and we need to select materials, that small instant, that short instance among the whole development process, we're talking about selecting the carpet or selecting a wood floor. And how do we share that? And we discuss on a table, a conference table, and it's difficult. Okay, touch it, look at it, remember it, send it to me by FedEx. I will do the same, or should we all have the same material at the same time, and then we meet in Zoom? Hey, I like it. No, I don't like it. I prefer this one. That is when the logistics start becoming a little bit more complicated. So that's a good example that you brought, Blima. But we think that there will be a point that we need to go back to normal work environment.
Yes, I always say there's nothing like human interaction. You know, I actually when people were finally getting comfortable to meet in person again, I was meeting a new client, but it was still very soon after COVID, so I wore a mask. And I had never met him before, he never met me before. And I said, like, if we ever meet each other again in the street, we won't know what we look like, because I was wearing a mask the whole time, he was wearing a mask, and it's really hard to actually see people. And I always find, as much as people say like the eyes have so much expression, that you know, when you're actually talking to someone and you see their entire face, you can't compare it as to when half of it is blocked. So, and that's besides the fact that, like, yes, as you were talking about materials, as much as we're trying to do things remotely, and we really are, seeing a material in person or live or on a screen, you don't get the texture and you don't get the exact color, because every screen has different ways of displaying. So it gets complicated, but like you said, we're figuring ways out, and we are sending samples out, and all of the vendors.
Yeah, but you have the designer, you have the architect, and there is a team within the design group, a team within the architect group, then a team within the development. So there are many people going to choose that specific wood floor, let's say, as a material, and it becomes that is where I see very, very small things that can become complicated. Overall, the rest we haven't had big issues, other than when it's about development process, other than the city agencies and offices that have been maybe slower because of COVID-19, but that's not related to design. That's more related to the pre-development or development phase that is required dealing with the city.
I wanted to touch base on the whole socialization issue, because I actually think, yes, that's a vital component that the office environment, as well as other work environments, offers its employees. Many people in this country, not just other countries, work long hours, and much of their social life does revolve around the office. Certainly many in their peer group become their friends, and they even sometimes get married and do other things of that nature. I feel that really with the reduced occupancies, because as more people are going to be working remotely, and maybe your typical office today, commercial office space in, say, New York City, might have occupancy reduced by 25, 30%, something along those lines. So as more people are working remotely, I think the time when they do come into the office, there's going to have to be more emphasis on creating some kind of potent social experience. So more events will have to happen, get-togethers, not, even social spaces where things can happen. Outdoor space, I think, will become very critical in New York. We're currently designing 3,000 square foot large terrace for a commercial accounting firm in New York. And it's a multifunctional project. So it has work areas, cafes, areas for private work, as well as potentially group collaborative work. And then also a wellness area where people can, relax, do yoga, whatever they might have. I think we're going to need more of these multi-dimensional spaces to allow people to socialize and give them reason to come into the office. And I think the biggest draw for them will be creating some form of social experience that's even more important than it is today.
Yeah, very good points. And I definitely agree. I think that, we are in the summer months here in New York. So I do think that using the outdoors is a big thing. And we have an office in Florida, which is currently where I'm working out of. And yes, being outdoors and making the most of that, because data is showing that COVID-19 doesn't spread as much or at all when you're outdoors. So people really are trying to take advantage of that. And any outdoor space that any of our clients has is really becoming very valuable, and they're trying to maximize it in any way possible. Okay, so let me just move forward and continue on. So how have you seen technology being able to affect the current climate of design, and not just design, but actually our current living spaces, for example, office spaces or residential or even healthcare? I know my office, we came out with a different return to workplace guide for employers having their employees returning to work. And a very large component was using technology. For example, the doors can be opened remotely so people don't actually have to touch the surfaces. And, having in the bathrooms, you don't have to touch anything. And just, those type of things, lights going on with sensors so we don't have to touch things. So that's just one example. But how do you feel like, another example I can just give quickly is in preparing designs for clients, having virtual walkthroughs and doing that type of thing so that people don't have to actually visit the space. So Joe, we'll start with you. How do you find that technology will help you in this type of environment? It could be in running your office, it could be in the spaces you're designing, it could be in your personal life.
Well, I guess some of the impact might be in actually making things more efficient for an architect or designer. Even, we might be able to do less site visits because more of that could be done through video conferencing. And that has been done. It is being done already. I think that will only continue. So I think a lot of visits and meetings and things of that nature that aren't really essential will start being curtailed and done in a different way. We've all read statistics in general about many conferences that happen in business throughout this country, that many of them are not that efficient. And I believe that that's going to be reduced. Large conference meetings. For us, as I said, not having to go to the site as much. There are definitely going to be technical changes to what is designed. There's going to be a lot of electronic developments, as you've pointed out, Blima, already, where doors can be operated without touching them and that kind of thing. More use of electronic sensors. Of course, some of this will add cost to projects. Those are the kind of things. I think one thing that should be focused on immediately is ventilation and air conditioning and heating. Already, in different office asset classes, as Diego mentioned in the beginning, will have different requirements. For instance, hospitals already have different filtration systems than what a school might have or some other facility. They might, a hospital will be using ultraviolet filtration system that's focused on killing germs and bacteria. Those kind of technologies might start being applied more wholesale to other kinds of projects. And again, that will probably add some cost. I know there's a lot of debate about the ultraviolet purification process, and that's still being studied as to how effective it is against all kinds of different types of germs and viruses. But that's been out there for a while, and I think that's going to start being applied to other asset classes.
I want to say, Joe, well, before I say something, I want to ask you something. All these things that you are talking about, are you referring this as the new normal or for a period of time?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, I guess. I think I think it's going to start. I think once you go down that road, it might be very accelerated in the beginning as a just immediate response to a pandemic, and then maybe pulled back later on when things hopefully calm down. But I do think ultimately some of this will stick. Some of these developments will stick, and we'll realize how to do them more efficiently and less costly. So there's no reason not to have a better an example, a better HEPA filtration system when it only costs a few dollars more to have it. Why not? And as technology becomes more prevalent and widespread, of course, costs of production go down, so it can be used more readily.
So I was in a conference, virtual as well, with ULI, and they asked me about the designs that we are doing and if we are making any changes on the designs that we have or we are working on, the projects we are working on. And I mentioned that I'm not making any changes on the current designs. In fact, the changes we made were more marketable. For example, we had designed some apartments, some project we just finished recently, that they had a den. So now those den, we call it home office. But it's the result of a design we had done before COVID-19 that we adapted to the new trend. But for the future, it's not that we are doing dens or now called home offices because of the COVID-19. Yes, where the design makes sense to have home offices for certain areas, we consider that, and it could be in the short and maybe middle term a good asset, as we hope on these projects that we are going now live in the leasing, even though in this market. So in terms of design, at least for the residential side, we are not making big changes, nor on the amenities areas. We hope that middle long term, we will go back to normal. Now, in terms of what Blima spoke about, the virtual versus actual tours, no, I believe that if regulations allowed us to get brokers and bring in people, I would prefer that. There's nothing like going and sense the space physically at the moment, at present. And we do have and we do offer virtual tours for those who don't want to, due to COVID-19, but I bet you half of those who say don't want to is because they are lazy, or they now see, okay, I have this tool, people now can offer this because of COVID-19. So why should I go? But the point is, it could be a loss of opportunity for both parties, the lessor and the lessee, the owner, the landlord, and the prospective tenant, because it could be a great match. And maybe this prospective tenant might lose the opportunity to fill the space by walking in and just getting the information from the virtual tour. And finally, related to the technology and everything you are talking about on the office side, look, I think it goes back to what governments will rule and what within each company will think is the proper way or the ethically to protect the health of the employees. For example, I went to bicycle to my office during COVID-19, a city bike, and because it makes sense for me from Manhattan, where I live, to Manhattan to the Midtown office, and I knew there was nobody in the office, so it's fine. I'm not affecting anybody while doing that, but I didn't demand my team. Sorry?
I was doing the exact same. It was actually probably a safe place to be because the office was empty, right?
Yeah. So, and I didn't demand my team, who might need to take the subway to come to my office, even though for me it would have been great. But we work very well remotely. So right now it's up to my team to let them do whatever they prefer, either come and work from office or not. When you are entering to big corporations, they need you don't have this gray area. It's black or white, and you need to put rules. And that's where I see that big offices might have to create all these systems like you, Joe, described, in order to maybe meet certain standards for the safety of the crew in the case of construction or the staff. And so, and part will be imposed by within the companies, and part might be imposed by the government that might say, you know what, from now on we need this, and that, and it becomes part of the coding. Okay. And then you have to go through coding compliance that will, okay, as you have ADA compliance, well, by the way, now you have coding compliance, right? This didn't happen yet, but it might come, and that might be said. If it's not said by the government, it will be up to the companies how to put that. So that's the way I see it in office. It will be within, each company will rule. Will
I think it will start in the companies, and ultimately some standards will be codified that I believe the government, who usually comes in later, after ideas have been developed, and will start, instituting as laws in the building code.
But I know, but by the way, just to finish that, as an asset class, you have institutions. With institutions, you have government institutions, you have the schools. Eventually, kids have to go back to have a presence education, because remote learning hasn't worked for young kids. And so, okay, there might be new code that schools will have to, comply within the cleaning system and maybe other things, other rules.
Schools
right?
do have, especially for younger children in preschool, there are regulations, and you do have to go through specific health requirements even before meeting the Department of Buildings, requirements. So those do exist, and I think, yes, they're going to be more stringent even going down the road.
They might be more, or they might be stronger on filters for when you were talking about the HVAC, right? Okay, how often we're changing filters and in which way, and maybe that will require inspections, who knows, right? And those things might stay in the long term, which at the end, I don't see it a bad thing, because it improves the health. it's always good to have someone controlling the filters are in place and clean, regardless COVID, right?
Yeah, so that's actually bringing me right into the next question, which is technically. Now we're up to the technical side. Technically, how do you think that things are changing post-COVID? So I think that something like HVAC and different systems will have to be in place in order to make sure that, I mean, when we're talking about the office space, that employees feel safe coming back to the office. When we're talking about the residential space, that tenants feel safe coming home to their building at night or during the day, working from there, also using the amenity spaces there. In the healthcare sector, making patients feel safe that they can go to a healthcare facility to recover and not feel afraid moving forward. So Diego, I'm going to start with you. And, you know, what kind of systems do you think technically you'll have to use in your projects, or what ideas do you have for other sectors of different systems that could be put in place to make people feel safer?
So we are, first, because we focus mainly on residential, and we create split systems individually for each apartment. That is a very good thing for the tenants, because we are not sharing other types, like a cooling system from the roof that is driving the whole cooling system of the building itself, but rather per apartment. So that by itself is contained within each apartment, right? And they could be mainly, I mean, maybe rules on the elevator, right? That they are already using. How many people can get into the elevator, or per family, whatever. I don't see much changes on the residential side. I think in the way we have designed our buildings, that is each individual system. There's not more to do on our end. I think it will be redundant. Yes, on office or hotels, definitely might be other things, but quite honest, I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe Joe knows better.
Okay, Joe, do you have any?
Yeah, I think the residential, which is our focus also, is going to be, I think, the most unknown right now. And, you know, largely because in residential design, you have built-in isolation to a certain extent. If one family lives in one unit, so you don't have to worry about public interaction in the home, because it's, you know, as opposed to commercial environments. However, in residential, everybody gets in the elevator. The elevator is going to probably be the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's no way that we can build enough elevators in a building and have usable and enough occupiable space to really create a very, you know, secure, that's where I think people, in other words, are most exposed. And I know landlords are having a lot of concern about that. I mean, maybe there'll be a tendency to, the new elevators will continue to improve and get faster and faster. They'll have better ventilation even in the elevators, so you're not enclosed in a small box with strangers for, you know, for a shorter period of time, and then the air has to be circulating much more rapidly. But that's a big concern. I don't, you know, I think there are a few things you can do there, but there are going to be some pinch points, and literally the elevator or maybe small lobby space where there could be that kind of interaction. The type of projects we do as developers are generally condo buildings that are modest size, you know, 10, 20 units, those kind of projects. Generally, there's little contact with other parties in units, I mean, in buildings of that size. So that's not as much of a concern for us to date. I think if you have a building that has a couple hundred apartments, that's different. And, you know, I don't think there's going to be that much change, as Diego says, in the design of a residence right away. I think more of it is going to be focused on making, allowing for a flexible home office to pop up in a home, whereas people need to work at home, when they're working remotely. I think that's going to be more of the immediate design impact.
Of people working from home.
Working from home and somehow, having the ability or an environment that allows maybe a den or an extra bedroom to be converted into a home office working environment.
Okay, so yes, I totally hear you, and I see with my staff and I see with my friends, and just the general trend that is out there is right now at this point, because of safety concerns, a lot of people are working from home. So just to talk about the home experience and how COVID has affected you on a personal level, how have you found that being home has changed your outlook, or some new things that you've gotten interested in or have had the time to explore now that you are mainly stationed at home? So I know for myself.
But neither Joe nor I isn't working at home, right?
Ever?
We bike to the office.
I'm working at home.
I've also been, actually, interestingly enough, I've been biking to the office, but that was already like 2.5 months in. Before that, I couldn't even leave the house. You've been going to the office every single day?
Yeah, I never stop.
Oh, wow.
I'm stopped using the subway and just taking I wasn't enrolled on City Bike until COVID-19, and I think it's amazing. It's a great thing, and I will continue with that.
Why not have your own bike? It's not more worth that?
Oh no, it's convenient. It's convenient because
Sorry, I have to relocate.
You can go anywhere. I have my bike and I don't use it. It's much easier. It's very, very, very good, and I really enjoy it. And I did enjoy it before when there was no traffic. Now it's becoming busier, but.
Right.
But answering your question, Blima, I asked my team, and 80% would rather go back to the office. So I think it's correlated to many things. The desire of the people that are working from home is related to many things. One, commute. Some people prefer not to do these long commutes and stay and work from home. The other thing could be family. They could see that maybe they can be closer to the kids or have more time with the kids. So it's a very, I think each individual will now look for his or her own interest and fight for it. So those who might want to send back kids to school, but there will be other families not. Maybe because they have a father or mother that they can help at home the kids, while the other couple, the other family cannot because both have to work. The same is with the office. Some people will be more into going back to work at the office and some others not. And I feel, due to social media, news, and everything, that COVID-19 became very polarized, very extreme. So it's either one side or the other side. There's nothing in the middle. And with the help of social media, and I feel that now you will see people fighting for their own interest of, okay, better work from home or better work at the office. And for the employers, for those who hire people and run an office, we might need to adjust to the desire of the people, their team. If you really value the team you have, and to adapt to their desire of and respect their ideas. But you will find other companies that might say, look, if you're going to work from home, And this is becoming not design, but economics of remote, working remotely, right? And it's, okay, a company will say, but wait a second, why do I have to pay you to work from Greenwich, Connecticut, right? You're not coming to the office. I'd rather pay half of the salary someone in the middle of Iowa who might be qualified as you are, and I don't need to pay your salary for you to pay the taxes and the private school or whatever in Greenwich, Connecticut. It might happen that some companies, it's not our case because we are a small company and we are all kind of local here, that might create some disruption, and some people might lose the job if they don't go back to the office. But that's more economics than design.
Right. Okay, Joe, do you want to talk about your personal experience with COVID and how it's affected your everyday life, your office life, whichever area you'd like to focus on, minus biking? No, I'm kidding.
Well, I will say that it hasn't impacted my company so much, which we're a boutique company. We're not a large, we don't have a lot of employees. And the way we're structured, I use a lot of independent contractors and freelance people. So many of them often do work at home or in their own environment, and we meet periodically. So there's not the need for them to be in an office every day. I have been working at home over the last couple of months, and it's been somewhat of a test, and it seems to be working out so far. I mean, of course, there are some hurdles, and even I miss having that social contact. Of course, we all, I think, who have been isolated feel starved for that, and especially being in the design world that we're all in. It is ultimately collaborative field, and there's something that is missed when you can't bring people together, because it's these secret moments where you have the people and just for some reason an idea clicks because of this exchange that may not happen so easily on a Zoom conference as it would in real life, face to face. I haven't been all that, impacted. I mean, I would definitely say we have city jobs that were shut down, including one of our development projects, a condo in Brooklyn that only was really completed, and we're now only able to, just as of last week, start showing for sale now. We have a TCO on the building, and that was unfortunate because we lost a lot of time, and we all know carrying a project is very expensive. And of course, the market, is softer. There's no question about that. And things, it's going to be more negotiable for the buyer. And that's, somebody who's trying to sell property, not the position we want to be in. But, that's how I've been impacted.
Okay. So that sounds good, all great points. But before we wrap this up today, just want to check if there's any questions, if any of you have anything to add.
I will add one more thing. It's more philosophical.
Okay.
Okay. It's not about virtual versus face to face. It's about body. When you talk to someone in person, right? You read the entire body, not only the face. And you, as Joe was talking about, the connecting with the other party that you're talking, even moreover with strangers that you don't know, it's very important. This social way of communicating. As we call it, face-to-face. It's more than just the face. And so I think for the purpose, let's say, for business development, the relationships that are needed to create, not only on the personal relationships, but also on the business side, eventually gathering, maybe control, but gatherings and meetings will have to happen. so that these relationships that go more body to body than just face to face, it creates, who knows, new ventures, joint ventures, or partners. How can I partner on a new venture with a stranger that I met in Zoom?
Or work with a new client. I mean, you need to have that.
Clients, of course,
that
or creating new
connection,
clients.
of course.
So that eventually will be needed, and I think I would say the sooner the better. So we get used to controlling COVID-19, but we also try to go back to as close as normal, so we can grow the economy that's been flattering. It could be worse if we continue this way. That's my philosophical point of view of COVID and the social distance and the way we are living and designing. So design for me will continue being the way it was before COVID-19.
Well, design is supposed to lead the way, and we're the ones, we're artists in our field and we're the creative minds. We have to sort of forecast and what will happen, or try to react to what we believe will happen in the future. And somehow we're going to have to lead the way and then be more, innovative in this area. And throughout history, good design has been able to do that. And, we have to, I guess, lead the way. I wouldn't rely on bureaucracy to show us how to deal with these problems. It really has to come, I think, from the design world. And that's my belief.
Yes, and I always say, as designers, we have this amazing ability to be able to impact our environments, and so much of what we do is impacted by that. And the fact that we're able to do this as our job, I just feel so lucky, and I know that my team also does, and it's such an amazing thing. But I do want to close with saying how, there's been so much pain and suffering and discomfort and so much negative from COVID-19. But what we always like to do is actually look at the positive. So, I've been seeing, even in the way we work a project and the time we've had to actually reflect on that and see how we could improve our processes, and, even just our relationships with our clients, with our families and everything, there's been a lot of positive that we've been able to take out of this pandemic. And that's what I really want to focus on and use that as our closing statement, because so often we get caught up in the negative and the things that are going wrong. But, especially as designers, we are impacting the environment around us, and we want that to be positive. It's so important that we always view things positively, and we want the people who are coming into our spaces to also. So, I want to thank all of you for your time. I really want to thank Diego and Joe. See, I did it the other way around this time. Really want to thank you both for your time and for everything that you've discussed with everyone. It's been most helpful and really interesting. And I'm sure if any of you who are tuning in have any questions that you'd like to further the conversation with them, I'm sure that they would love to answer those questions. And, I just want to thank you all for your time.
Thank you as well.
Thank you, Blima. Thanks for your narration.
Bye-bye.